What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So this week, Nintendo made an announcement that was so bizarre, caught the internet so off guard, that it kicked off a ton of Switch 2 speculation all around a charging accessory. Yeah, we're gonna go over that here today. Also, we are gonna be talking about the Vita and a really cool port that has been done for it, and you can actually try out right now, and they'll also be going over the PlayStation 5 Pro, as there have been some concerns that it wouldn't be coming out this year. Well, we have a new report that even tries to hone in on exactly when we can expect this thing. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with the Microsoft, Activision Blizzard, FTC situation that I really thought was behind us, but now it looks like the FTC is back. In fact, we can see this posted up, this by Tom Warren over on X, where he says the FTC is calling Microsoft's new Xbox Game Pass standard tier a degraded product. In a filing with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, the FTC claims Microsoft is exercising market power post-merger of Activision Blizzard. Here, they mostly cite all the changes that have been made to Game Pass, as well as the price increase, which Microsoft technically has increased the price of Game Pass without owning Activision Blizzard, so I don't know if you can necessarily look at that acquisition as the absolute reason that prices went up. We've all seen subscription services in general across the board in just media go up. So I don't know if that's a pinpoint actually of like, okay, that's why. But still, they'd be taking a shot at it here with the filing, I guess, to try to reverse or break up the deal, although even that seems pretty ingrained right now after Microsoft made a lot of cuts due to redundancies. So to me, this just seems like the FTC taking a shot at this. I'm not expecting much to come from this filing to the appeals court, but I guess we'll see going forward. Also, it looks like that Halo streaming series that's gone through now 2 seasons is officially canceled, and at this time won't be moving forward with Paramount, but there's still a chance, apparently, that they could find a new home for Season 3. We can see this is posted up. This is over on Eurogamer, saying it seems there's still a chance the show might live on elsewhere if creators Xbox, Amblin TV, and 343 Industries get their wish, citing an individual with knowledge of the situation. Variety says all three will now attempt to shop the series around to other outlets. So perhaps don't write the Halo TV show off quite yet. And it wouldn't shock me if the Halo TV show popped up somewhere else, as we have seen series jump all over the place with these different subscription services. That can actually be kind of an annoying thing. Like, we talk about how we got away from cable TV and the packages they try to throw at you with all these bundles, and now we're to the point where these subscription services, if you bundle them all together, is like more expensive than cable, and then you have shows jumping from one to the other mid-season. It's a whole thing there. But the Halo show, we know, has gone through a ton of controversy. It hasn't exactly been the most accepted franchise series that's been run, with the canon coming into question, a lot of stuff there. And I just didn't really like it after the first season, and I was kind of off and on with the second season. So personally, I'm not really that sad about it getting canceled, but we'll see if it pops up again for the third season, maybe with, like, I don't know, Netflix or Hulu or something like that. Oh, and Concord's open beta is now live for PC and PlayStation 5. So if you were curious about this, just to see how it would run maybe even on your PC, or find out what all the discussion's been around this newest hero shooter, you can do so even on PC. In fact, people are tracking it once again over on Steam charts, and you can see concurrent player count isn't exactly strong for an open beta, one that you don't have to pre-order to get into, with concurrent player count numbers hovering right around the 2,000 or less mark, and the highest we've seen so far, 24-hour peak, is just under 2,400 players. Over the weekend, I assume it'll be higher than that, but people are, of course, looking at these numbers and saying this game is in trouble, and I can't really push back on that. I haven't even felt that compelled to go back for the open beta. I am still, because I wanted to talk about it on Click R3, the PlayStation podcast, just give my full thoughts overall for this game. But it's not a very compelling game to go back to, so it's just kind of blending in with all the other hero shooters for me. But if you're a fan of hero shooters and you've wanted to try it, the open beta is currently live for PlayStation 5 and PC. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and a new accessory that they've announced for the Switch. One that was so bizarre, so strange to announce, 7 years into the life of the system that it actually kickstarted a wave of speculation for the Switch 2 on social media. Let's take a look at the announcement here that really got all this going. Yeah, you're seeing it. It's the Joy-Con charging stand, two-way by the way, in parentheses. A device dedicated to charging Joy-Con controllers as well as Nintendo Entertainment System controllers for Nintendo Switch. It's releasing October 17th. I mean, if we are to believe that the next system is coming out maybe even first half of next year, even to reenact the original Switch's launch in March, it would probably be announced around or even before the time of the release for this accessory. But that's not really what's throwing people through a loop here. It's mostly that this is pretty much the accessory that they released back when the original Switch launched in 2017, minus the back grip part. Yeah, I mean, there's a charging grip you can buy for your Joy-Cons now. The difference here, as you can see in these pictures, it's missing that grip piece and it's just the center, which means, as they've shown with the NES controllers, it will actually work with other accessories as long as it can slot on with those Joy-Con rails. And I guess technically then, let's say the next system still uses a Joy-Con-like setup with railings. Technically this would work for it. Or what people are thinking right now is there won't be a way to charge, say, your Joy-Cons like these on the new system, because they're going to go to a different rail system that we've heard would use magnets in some way, and I think that's mostly for the locking mechanism aspect to it. I think this will be rails of some kind, at least something to sort of guide it into place, and the magnets will sort of just click it then the rest of the way. But this would be at least a method for you to charge your Joy-Con controllers without having to rely, say, on the system. So here you'd be plugging your sliding your Joy-Cons onto the centerpiece and then plugging it in through USB-C to USB-A on the side of the dock. And this really was enough to get people talking all about Nintendo's next system and how this will be working to accommodate it, because yeah, there's a good chance that the Joy-Con controllers you have now are going to work with the next system for backwards compatibility. I don't think that's like a major revelation. If we're expecting backwards compatibility for some of these games, or most of them, I should say, even all of them, you would need Joy-Con controllers for some of these games that rely heavily on it. I'm thinking like Super Mario Party. That's one that you just need to use a Joy-Con controller with, or I guess Pokemon, Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, and then many others. I mean, technically, like Ring Fit Adventure, that's designed specifically to use the Joy-Con controller with the ring. So that, again, not shocking to hear that the Joy-Con controller would work with it. It's just this accessory is very weird to just announce now as opposed to, I don't know, years ago. It's like, really, this is when the accessory is being revealed, probably a few months before the next system comes out. I mean, this goes on sale, as they mentioned, in October. I mean, there's a chance that just a few months later, the new system would come out. Does that mean this accessory would work with it? I mean, it would work with your Joy-Cons, but there's also still the chance, as we've mentioned before, that the current Switch still has a healthy amount of life in front of it. I mean, if there's a 2-year cross-gen period, and then maybe even longer for third parties, this is probably a way for Nintendo to make a bunch of money off of the current install size for an accessory that, let's face it, is pretty cheap to manufacture. I just thought it was funny that it was something as small as a charging accessory, this charging stand for the Switch, that got the internet going crazy around Nintendo's next system. That's kind of how on edge the internet is currently around Nintendo's new device, because we are getting to the point where Nintendo themselves have said it's getting announced in this fiscal year. Well, guess what? In September, we'll be halfway through that fiscal year, so we're kind of figuring they're going to make that announcement at any time. Going into the holiday here with the Switch's last holiday season by itself pretty much in front of us, we're basically expecting that announcement to be made at some point with a trailer, and then probably going into that first half of 2025 for a big release for their next system, coming off of the install size of the current Switch at that time, probably close to or even above 150 million. It's gonna be a very popular launch. So I understand why there's a lot of excitement and interest when a weird announcement like this happens, but also keep in mind, Nintendo just does weird things. Nintendo, yeah, sometimes they just like to Nintendo. Next up, let's talk about an awesome Vita port, and that's for the Simpsons Hit and Run. And I love when I see these games that you don't really expect to run on the hardware just sort of show up and actually run pretty well. Now, there is a video that's showcasing this. You can see some of it here. And this is from Zealous Chuck. And in this video, they do show off the Simpsons Hit and Run. And I'm not gonna tell you it runs 60 frames per second perfect the whole way, because there are frame rate dips and stuff, but as someone who played this back in the day I played this on the original Xbox actually, it is awesome to see it functioning like this on the Vita, and it is fun to see these projects where you take beloved games like this that, let's face it, the parent company really hasn't shown much interest at all in doing some sort of remaster or even remake for current platforms, at least to get it onto something like the Vita. It's just really neat to see, and also to see that the Vita still very capable in 2024. It's impressive, by the way, to realize that the Vita, when you look at it, with an OLED screen for the original model, came out 13 years ago? Like, it's wild stuff there. But right now, this is available over on GitHub. It isn't a release, while it is, I believe, version 0.6, so it's not perfect. There are bugs and issues, but it says this is a port of the Simpsons Hit and Run to the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation Vita based on the leaked source code. The full game should be playable, including local multiplayer in the bonus game. The port is, however, still incomplete, so some glitches can be observed, and some visual effects are missing compared to the PC version. You will need to secure some of the assets, as they mentioned with the PC version here, but yes, it does also work on the Switch. I just find the Vita to be a bit more intriguing because it's clearly not as powerful, as the Switch has much less RAM, much less processing power, but there it is working. So I just wanted to bring this to some of your guys' attention, especially if you have a Vita that technically you can fire this up on. Why not give it a shot and see what the Vita can still do, as I mentioned, more than a decade later with something like The Simpsons Hit and Run. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro, which, based on reports and rumors, is a system we believe Sony is going to launch this holiday season, and if it goes in line with what we saw with the PlayStation 4 Pro, they can technically announce it just a couple of months before it comes out. But we did have a new report from Tom Henderson over on Insider Gaming. We can see this posted up over on their site, where they say developers can submit their applications supporting the PlayStation 5 Pro to CertOps, the platform certification operations, on July 30th, a date understood to have been finalized as far back as 18 months ago. In addition, all applications for the PlayStation 5 on games that will be released after September 15th will be required to support the PlayStation 5 Pro. This does not mean the PS5 Pro released on September 16th. So although not an exact release date, the information, which was released by PlayStation earlier this week to developers, suggests that the PlayStation 5 Pro is still on track to be released later this year. There's a bit more information in that article. I will leave it linked down below in the source if you'd like to read further. But at this time, I think what we're kind of expecting is Sony to have either unveiled this officially or maybe even just show it off officially at Tokyo Game Show, as they will be attending for the first time in years. All of a sudden, they're going to show up there, and while we have things like Astrobot coming up, that'll be out before Tokyo Game Show. We have Concord, with that coming up, again, before Tokyo Game Show. It's like, well, what are they showing up there to do? Well, they have third-party games like a Death Stranding 2, right? Of course, they IP and ownership and stuff all tied up there, but they're working with Kojima Productions with that game. I'm thinking more like big first-party titles they might show off, or new hardware that many third parties, as is being mentioned here, to turn in stuff for certification and prepare for launch of either updates that could reinvigorate sales on its own. If you get a new, more powerful system, you might want to go back and check out some older games that get these updates. Well, they might be ready to talk about these things at Tokyo Game Show, where a bunch of eyes are on them, especially heading into the holiday season. So I'm personally expecting going into Tokyo Game Show to either have knowledge of the PS5 Pro by then, or maybe even Sony show up and talk about it there in some regard. I was trying to figure out if they would have their big showcase just ahead of Tokyo Game Show, and that's where they reveal it. I guess it would make sense for them to have a showcase in September and really start setting up the following year in 2025, because it does feel like Sony has been kind of treading water for a little while. Like, not a ton of competition, let's be real, for Microsoft right now, as we see the console sales dwindling for Xbox versus the PlayStation 5 that has pretty much become the default system across the board for many people, at least. Well, Sony, I'd like to think, will get on the ball here and start talking about their big first-party studios that people are anticipating some big-time releases from, whether it's Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog, who we've heard mostly about canceling things like The Last of Us Online, Sony Santa Monica, and and Blue Point and so on. There's a lot of studios they can pick from. This seems like that'd be around the right time to start talking about software and then also show off the PlayStation 5 Pro, some big time hardware. So we'll see again as we get closer to Tokyo Game Show, we start getting some rumblings about a big PlayStation showcase. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Splitgate, because now we have the official announcement and release year for Splitgate 2, which, if you're not aware, Splitgate is pretty much Halo with portals as it's been described, and it came out a couple of years ago, and it actually did really, really well. So well, in fact, they decided to stop development and then just start working on the next one, which caught a lot of people off guard because, as we know with multiplayer live service games today, you just run that game into the ground, basically. You just keep going until it can't go anymore. Well, they decided to do something a bit different and hone more traditional release schedules for games, multiplayer games even, where you put out a multiplayer game, people like it, arena shooter, and then you move on and make another one. It's just funny now thinking back on it that people were like, why are you stopping development? Well, they showed off this cinematic trailer here announcing Splitgate 2. It is coming out in 2025. To go along with that, they have this description saying that this time around, Splitgate 2 has been designed from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5 to deliver the AAA FPS experience our fans deserve, with the series' signature action completely overhauled by an all-star team composed of the most talented individuals in the industry. This is a revolutionary step forward for competitive shooters. It's the perfect entry point for players new to the world of Splitgate and a comprehensive upgrade worthy of our existing community. Now, this is a free-to-play shooter. It is 4v4. You can customize your weapons, master your portal skills, and play with friends as you compete for glory in a galactic arena. To me, with the first Splitgate, they seemed very much caught off guard with how popular it ended up being. Seemed like something they threw out there as a fun arena shooter with portals, and it just took off. And at that time, they were still kind of working with really their original idea that probably wasn't set up to the scale that they realize they can now accomplish. And going back to the drawing board, doing Splitgate 2, for them, they're getting that big release that they wanted in the first, well, not even in the first place, but eventually wanted when they realized how many people liked the idea of Splitgate. The only issue is people also did not like the idea of them just backing away from development of something that was working and they liked at that time. So here's hoping Splitgate 2 is able to live up to the now set high expectations in 2025, because to be honest, the cinematic trailer really doesn't tell us a lot. So here's hoping they have some gameplay to show off here maybe before the end of the year. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask Switch owners, how do you charge your Joy-Con controller? 68% of people just leave them on the Switch in the dock, and that would probably include, that would include people who are just playing docked all the time. I would assume if you are just playing docked, you've never used a Switch in handheld mode, you probably also invested in a Pro controller, because the Joy-Cons and the grip aren't exactly the best experience in terms of ergonomics. Then 20% say I'll leave them on the Switch and plug the system in. I'm picturing in like handheld mode users mostly. And then 6% have a charge grip or charge station. Then the other 6% just don't use or charge the OEM Joy-Cons, probably put them in a drawer somewhere and never looked at them again. But yeah, that's how I figure. Most people probably just leave it on the Switch, drop it in the dock when they need to charge the system, because most of the time, the system will be dead before your Joy-Cons. Joy-Cons have a much better battery life than the console, the Switch itself, and I don't really see many people talk about the old charge grip, or even charge stations. The third-party ones also tend to be kind of junk, so I guess in a way, Nintendo releasing this is like, hey look, now we have a first-party OEM one you can use with a stand. It just took, for some reason, more than 7 years for us to bring this thing to market. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Princess Peach saying, is it really real hardware if you have to upgrade the RAM on the Dreamcast? I do still consider it real hardware because you're still using the setup for the console, you're not emulating stuff, but I understand what you're saying when it comes down to the hardware in question isn't what was released out of the box. You have to do some pretty significant modifications to get something like that to run on it. Sure, you can make the argument that it's not the original hardware, but when I did the Halo 2 mod for it, where you would play that in 720p, you did need a 128 megabyte upgrade for the console, but I still considered it real hardware. So for the Dreamcast, I think in this case, what they're trying to do with Grand Theft Auto 3 is just work to develop it and eventually get it to run on the original 16 megabytes of RAM, which Sounds like that'd be tough to do, but them working in a 32 megabyte environment makes it a bit easier for them to do development, and then maybe they can get it to work in a 60 megabyte environment, but who knows, maybe this is a modification or a game that requires that sort of a modification that I will say isn't exactly beginner friendly. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Well, there's the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con charging stand. When you saw it, did that catch you off guard? And then did you immediately think how it could somehow relate to Nintendo's next system? Then also, what about the Vita being able to play Simpsons Hit and Run? Was that surprising for you to see? And what we're seeing right now with the PlayStation 5 Pro, no mention right now from Sony. Do you think it's still coming out this year? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.